Franklin, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority.
6:37. Happy Thursday morning to you. Brian, even Mary Catherine Ham here in the studios of WMAL in Washington, D.C. Brian Wilson is in Columbia, South Carolina, tracking down the candidates. Talked to Newt Gingrich yesterday. Rick Santorum met up with Mitt Romney as well. Lanny Davis is online, former Clinton White House counsel, writes a piece in the Hill newspaper, Purple Nation. So there's an interview tonight on ABC with Marianne Gingrich, who's Newt's second wife, his ex-wife, in which she apparently, my guess is we don't know exactly what she says. We've heard a couple of clips from it, but it's not going to be, hey, we had a loving, wonderful relationship, and it's great, and it's fantastic, and I love it.
That is not going to be the endorsement, I don't think.
That is not what's going to happen tonight. First of all, Lanny, do you think it's fair of ABC News to play this tonight after the primary?
After the debate.
After the debate, I'm sorry.
Of course it's fair because that's what the media does, and Brian Ross, you would think he's a great reporter, that he has better things to do with his time. If he wants to waste his time wallowing in this stuff that is only going to help Gingrich, then that's up to Brian Ross. I never criticize the media for going as low as they possibly can go in order to get a story.
Joe,
that's what the media does, so it's silly to criticize.
Do you think this will help Newt?
Yes, I said the same thing about Herman Cain, and I've said this really...
You were wrong about Herman Cain.
Well, eventually.
Well, I think I was wrong about Herman Cain not wanting to put up with it. I don't think I was wrong about Herman Cain, that this was not an issue that really should have caused him to stop his campaign, and I have felt that way since Jack Kennedy. This is most people believe a man's or woman's private life isn't relevant unless it affects their public performance. And I know all this nonsense about character, but there isn't anybody who has a glass house in politics.
Excuse me. You think issues of character are nonsense, issue. Lanny? Lanny, you think that issues of character are nonsense? You don't think that's important to voters?
Character involving private life and a relationship with an ex-wife is nonsense when it comes to a presidential campaign and public performance in office. And I've said that about Herman Cain, and I've said that about President Clinton, and I've said that about other people in public life. And there is really, literally, Franklin Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower, Jack Kennedy, will you name me, Grover Cleveland, and Alexander Hamilton. Are we really going to say that this is an issue that people vote on? And I think most of the American people and most of your audience are nodding their head, bipartisan. This is ridiculous.
Well, I think it maybe matter more in a Republican primary than would in a general election, but there are a lot of people that would matter.
There are sanctimonious evangelical Christians that are telling everybody not to.
There's sanctimonious everyone, Lanny. And there are people who perfectly reasonably say, hey, the dude had 3 wives, and maybe he didn't treat 2 of them too good, and maybe that affects how I feel about him. Also,
there are a couple of people who say that, but they're a small minority, and I do agree with you that it's a bipartisan hypocrisy.
But kind of all you need for an October surprise story is, hey, this is sort of an icky feeling story about this guy. It doesn't even have to be something that affects his performance, I think. And it can still badly affect the candidate.
If this is the way you feel, I respect that. But I'm telling you, there is a very small minority of people in this country that get an icky feeling because someone's private life becomes part of a political campaign.
Now, I actually don't feel that way. I said earlier I don't much care about the ex-wife story. I'm just saying, politically speaking, that I think for an October surprise, it doesn't require much to make people go, I don't know, second thoughts.
Well, and this comes at such an interesting time, Lanny.
It's a small minority of sanctimonious hypocrites who probably in their own private lives wouldn't want to have a public display of what they do behind closed doors. But you're right, there's a small percentage, I think it's about 3%. There's a small percentage of bigots in the country. But it's the media that does this. And they started doing it with Gary Hart. I wrote a book about this. And do you remember what Alexander Hamilton did when his affair was exposed by guess who? Thomas Jefferson. And you know what Alexander Hamilton did to Thomas Jefferson? He exposed his affair with Sally Hemings. Does anybody really believe that Thomas Jefferson shouldn't have served in office because of this Sally Hemings affair? This is creepy that the press is still doing it. That's what's creepy.
Well, Lanny, with all due respect, and I know you feel passionately about this, and but I mean you're in South Carolina, you're in the Bible Belt, you have Newt Gingrich in second place, and you know there are people out there who will say, you know, if this is if it's really damning stuff, there are people who will change their vote over this.
Well, I do agree. There, you know, it's a small percentage, and in a tight contest, it could hurt. And it's unfortunate, and the rules changed since, I think, Gary Hart, when I wrote my book, I traced it back to really the Gary Hart daring the media to catch him doing something. Yeah. It used to be that the press wouldn't write about private lives unless it affected public performance, unless there was a bribery, an affair involving a spy or something like that. And then the rules changed, and now it's fair game, and it was fair game for Herman Cain, Newt Gingrich. I'm not voting for these guys, and I really am consistent Democrat versus Republican.
All right, lady, what about the Keystone Pipeline? It goes down yesterday. The president's blaming the Republicans on this. I mean, why do you not want to have this? I mean, I don't get the logic of saying, you know, we're not going to do this. This comes from Canada, going to have jobs, may help in the economy when it comes to gas prices down the road. Isn't it a win-win-win for everyone in the country, except for the environmentalists?
Look, I always have a hard time publicly opposing a president I'm going to vote for, but I don't get this. I don't get this. He was in favor of this pipeline to a sliver of the environmental movement. Not even all environmentalists started to lobby for him to change his mind. Now, he's allowed to change his mind. I support this pipeline for all the reasons you said, and I'm allowed to disagree with someone I'm going to vote for, who I think has been a very good president. But what I don't get is not being straightforward about explaining. Suppose he said, look, everyone, this is about politics. I've got a left wing in my party that doesn't want me to do this. I'm going to change my mind. That would be refreshing. Instead, what does he do? He blames the State Department, for God's sake.
He doubles down.
Come on, President Obama. It's not about the State Department. You changed your mind. You did it for reasons that you thought were right. Just tell us the truth. I disagree with his decision respectfully. I'm still going to vote for him. I do not understand why this pipeline should not be built.
All right, laddie. Good to talk to you as always. Do it again next